Canada just canceled $47 billion in American weapons contracts, not because they couldn't afford them, because they chose not to. And what they're buying instead could permanently reshape how NATO defends the entire Western world. Stay with me, because the number at the end of this story will surprise you. 2 months ago, Ottawa and Washington signed what looked like the biggest bilateral defense deal in North American history, $47 billion Canadian. F-35 fighters, naval frigates, integrated air defense systems, every dollar flowing to Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics. It was supposed to be the gold standard of alliance cooperation. Then one speech changed everything. At Davos, Prime Minister Mark Carney stood in front of European leaders and condemned what he called economic coercion by great powers against smaller nations. He never said Trump's name. He didn't need to. Within 6 weeks, that $47 billion deal was dead. A one-page letter, 114 words, landed at the Pentagon on April 19th. No apology. No extended explanation. Just one sentence. Canada is pursuing alternative procurement strategies consistent with Canadian sovereignty. If you think that's a bold move, wait until you see where that money went instead. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Carney made the right call? We read every single one. Here's what happened next. Canada didn't stop spending. They redirected. Same $47 billion, same timeline. Not a single American company on the list. Sweden's Saab will supply Gripen fighters instead of F-35s. Britain's BAE Systems gets the naval frigate contracts. France's Thales is building the radar systems. And Ottawa is pumping $6 billion into domestic Canadian manufacturers. CAE, IMP Aerospace. Companies most Americans have never heard of. Every new contract includes what Canadian officials are calling a sovereignty clause, a legal guarantee that no foreign supplier can cut off parts, software updates, or maintenance based on political decisions made in Washington. Canada watched what happened when Turkey bought Russian S-400 missiles and got ejected from the F-35 program. They decided they would never put themselves in that position again. But here's the question nobody is asking loudly enough. Can that sovereignty clause actually hold? Because here's where the story gets complicated, and this is the part the headlines missed completely. The equipment is European. The architecture it must plug into is American. NORAD, the Joint Command defending North American airspace, is 80% funded by the United States. Washington holds operational control. If the Pentagon decides Sweden's Gripen fighters cannot integrate with American early warning systems, Canada's brand new jets become $47 billion worth of expensive metal that cannot talk to the radar protecting its own sky. A former NORAD deputy commander told Defense News exactly what that means in plain language. If a bomber enters Canadian airspace and we cannot coordinate a response in real time, that is a mission failure. And mission failures in air defense cannot be fixed after the fact. Think about that for a second and keep watching, because it gets even more serious. The numbers tell a brutal story. Canada currently flies 76 CF-18 Hornets. Most are over 35 years old. The fleet was supposed to retire by 2025. The government extended service life, but at any given moment, only about 50 of those jets are airworthy. Under the canceled American deal, Canada would have received 88 F-35A Lightning II fighters starting in 2027, with the first full squadron operational by 2028. The new Gripen deal delivers 65 aircraft, 23 fewer jets, with deliveries starting in 2029. That is a 2-year delay on top of a smaller, less capable fleet defending the second-largest landmass on the planet. On the naval side, Canada's Halifax-class frigates were set to receive Aegis combat systems, the same technology on U.S. Navy destroyers, giving Canada's fleet seamless interoperability with American carrier strike groups. Instead, Ottawa chose BAE's Scepter system. Proven technology, used by the Royal Navy, but a completely different architecture. Integrating it with NORAD's Continental Defense Network requires custom software development that defense analysts describe as expensive and time-consuming. The Pentagon said nothing publicly, but a defense official told CBS News that NORAD commanders are, quote, deeply concerned. If Canada shows up with systems we cannot plug into our networks, that is not an alliance. That is a liability. Trump responded the way Trump responds. He posted on Truth Social within hours. Carney is making a huge mistake. Canada's military is a joke without American technology. They'll come crawling back when they realize Swedish jets cannot integrate with NORAD systems. The post ended with 3 American flag emojis. Carney held a press conference the next morning. A reporter asked if he was worried about damaging the relationship. His answer was 4 words: Canada is not taking instructions. He then announced a broader defense industrial strategy, 70 billion Canadian dollars redirected to European and domestic suppliers over the next decade. Not a partial shift, a complete structural divorce from American defense procurement. This is the move that triggered alarm in Brussels, London, and Tokyo simultaneously, and here's why it matters far beyond Canada's borders. NATO is watching this in real time. A NATO official told Reuters the alliance is monitoring the tension closely, but beneath the diplomatic language is a calculation every allied government is now running quietly. If Canada can successfully operate European equipment inside NATO frameworks without American approval, then Poland asks why it needs American missile systems. Japan asks why it needs Lockheed Martin when domestic alternatives exist. South Korea, Australia, Germany, every ally runs the same spreadsheet. Trump's transactional approach to alliances was designed to force better burden sharing. What it may actually produce is a fracture in the procurement ecosystem that Washington spent 75 years building, and the actors benefiting most from that fracture are not in Brussels. China is watching. Russia is watching. What they see is Washington doing in 3 years what Moscow spent decades trying to accomplish, driving wedges between the allies that make American power global rather than merely American. The difference, as one European official put it bluntly, is that Moscow used propaganda. Washington is using invoices. Here is the core question that nobody can answer yet, and it is the only one that actually matters. Will the Pentagon allow European equipment to integrate with American networks? Or will it quietly ensure that Canada's new jets cannot talk to American radar, making the sovereignty clause worthless before the ink dries? Canada's defense dependency has not disappeared. It has changed shape. The equipment is now European, but the architecture those weapons must operate within, NORAD, satellite data links, early warning networks, remains American. And the country that controls the architecture controls whether any of it works, regardless of what flag is printed on the hardware. The NATO summit in Brussels this July will be the first public test. Both Trump and Carney will be in the same room. European leaders are privately urging de-escalation. Neither leader has shown any appetite for it. What happens in that room will determine whether Canada's gamble becomes a model for Allied independence or a cautionary tale about the cost of saying no to the most powerful military on Earth. $61 billion offered, $47 billion canceled, $70 billion redirected, and the one thing no amount of money can purchase, the permission of the country that built and controls the defense architecture of the continent you share. We track this story daily as it develops, and the next update will cover what the Pentagon's internal response actually looks like behind closed doors. If you want that analysis before it hits the mainstream, like this video so the algorithm sends it to you. Before you leave, if you were Mark Carney, knowing everything you just learned, would you have taken the $61 billion? American equipment, full NORAD integration, guaranteed interoperability, but complete dependency on Washington's goodwill forever? Or do you pay more, wait longer, get fewer jets, and bet that sovereignty is worth the operational gap? Tell us in the comments. We respond daily. If this gave you something the defense headlines completely missed, share it with one person who thinks this story is just about fighter jets. It is not about fighter jets. It is about whether an ally can say no and still be defended. Subscribe if you want the answer the moment we have it. This series is not finished, not even close.